Terumos. Um, Yud base. If one grated an apple and put it into dough and leavened it, it is forbidden. If barley fell into a cistern of water, even though it tainted the water, it is permitted. If one heated an oven with cumin of truma and baked in it, the bread is past permitted since there is no taste but only the aroma of cumin. And we have if fenugreek fell into a wine vat or truma or maisa sheni, if the feed was sufficient to impart a flavor, but not the stalk, if it of the seventh year of vineyard kalayim or hegdish, if the seed is the and the wood impart a flavor. Okay,
Okay. Um,
did I do something wrong? Or something
um,
out?
where, I lost focus. I'm sorry. Where did you just finish?
I finished in hay.
Okay, so you should go back to Aleph and do those ones because those are the new those are yesterday's ones.
Go back to Aleph. Yes, you're right. I was
Onion.
wrong. I was totally wrong. Okay, again, I'm doing red. If one put an onion into lentils and it was whole, if it was permitted, but if cut up, it imparts a flavor. In the case of all of the dishes, whether whole or cut up, if it imparts a flavor. Rabbi Yehuda permits in the case of pickled fish, since it was used only to remove the bad smell. All right, so I did base and I did gimel.
Mhm.
All right, so now we're on down. Okay.
Okay. Um, Fine. So the oven. Tanoshe hisiko bechamon. So he took some cumin, whatever. It's a kind of a spice, but
Right.
it burns. And so he had a let's say it was a Kohen who took this, and maybe even it was tame, and he was allowed to burn it. Okay. So
Right.
he stuck it into the oven to fire the oven, and he baked some bread in it. Okay, now you're burning the cumin. It's truma, and we just said in the previous Mishnah that we had the hot loaf of bread that was fresh out the oven. You put it over a barrel of wine, and it can
Right.
absorb taste. Okay, hapas muteris she'ein tam kamon ela reach kamon, because what's happening over here when it's burning is it's not the actual it's not the taste of the cumin that's going into the bread. It's just the smell. So we said the reich lav milsa. The smell is not considered substantial. So what was it with the wine? If not
I'm
if
gonna
not
ask you that.
so what was it with the wine that we're concerned about? There, if you actually have vapor
Right.
evaporating off it, and that's not just smell. There's actually a certain mamash to it, and because it's hot, that's
Right.
very likely that you're going to get some of the taste inside there. Okay. Mishna, hey, tilton fenugreek, is a kind of a vegetable or herb that is typically the edible part is the seeds actually, but the rest of the plant is also edible. But the ikar part is the seeds, and that's what's important about this Mishnah over here. Okay, so the fenugreek fell into the vat of wine. Okay, and the fenugreek is truma. But truma, okay, well, actually, we're going to go through a number of cases of what if the truma the fenugreek was this. So, with truma over maaseh sheni, what happens if the fenugreek was truma or if the fenugreek was maaseh sheni? Okay, so now how do we judge the effect that it has on the wine? Im yesh bezereh kedei litain tam. We don't look at the stems or the leaves. All we're looking at is the seed. And if that seed is enough to give taste to the wine, then we judge it according to the whatever it was. So if it's truma, then the wine is now a mixture of truma. And if it's Maaseh Sheni, then the wine must be treated as Maaseh Sheni. It's got to be redeemed or drunk in Jerusalem or whatever. Okay. Aval lo ba'etz. So, but you don't count the stems or of the fenugreek. B'shvius or b'kilaya kerim. What happens if the fenugreek was from Shemitah? Okay, or it was kilaya kerim. So now we're not just dealing with the taste of the ikar taste of the fenugreek and where the truma or the maaser sheni attaches to. So truma and maaser sheni attach to the ikar edible part, which is the seeds.
Mhm.
Shvius and kilai akarim attach to the entire body of the plant. Okay, which is interesting because normally when you have shvius in your garden, the shvius attaches to to the fruit of your lemon tree, not to the branches, because the branches are not edible at all. But anything with even slightly edible, the Shemitah is going to attach to it. So that's why we're talking about this in the fenugreek. So anything, excuse me. So so when it comes to Shemitah and Kilai Kerim and Hekdesh as well, also if it was dedicated to the temple, Im yesh bezer uba eitz kedei litain time. Now you've got to take a look at the whole body because the whole body is affected by this status, whether it's Isur or whether it's Shemitah or whatever. So then you're going to do your judgment differently.
Do you ever try do you ever eat fenugreek?
I
You ever
have
have it?
tasted it and I found it rather revolting.
Okay. I won't
I
try
think
it.
it's called Hilbe.
What,
It's
what does it look like?
they sell it in I think in Sfardi's. It's more of a Sfardi thing that they make a little salad out of it called Hilbe, and it just looks and tastes. I mean, it's not my taste. Never
Not your
mind.
taste. Okay.
Yeah. Vav, mi shehaya lo chavilei tiltan shel kilaya kerim. Okay, so he's got bundles of this fenugreek, and it was grown in a vineyard. Bam, bad luck. Okay,
Yeah.
so it's Asra and it has to be burned, right? Yidaleku, whole thing has to be burned because that's the din of kilaya kerim, has to be burned, including the kerim. Okay. Hayulo chavile tiltan shel tevel. What if he's got bundles uh
So,
of tevel? Okay, so tevel is not a bad thing. It's just has to have Trumas and Masters taken off it. Okay. So now how should he take Trumas and Masters of it? Because he's got the whole thing, he's got the whole plant over here. So Koteshim, he bangs it out. He bangs out the seeds. Umechashev kama zera yesh behem. And so he works out how much seed is in them because you don't have to take trumas and masters from the rest of the plant. That's not the edible part. Okay, so he works out how much. It's not the ikar edible part, even though it is edible, but koshi, it's nonetheless that's not where you take your trumas and masters from. So you look at how much seed there is, umafrish min et hazera, and you separate from the seed. Ve'eno tzarich lafrish es ha'etz. No need to separate trumas and masters from the rest of the plant. Ve'im hifrish. What happens if he went ahead and separated trumas and masters from the seed and from the plant? Okay. Lo yamar echtosh ve'etol es ha'etz ve'etein es hazera. Oh, so I'll knock out the seeds and I'll give the I'll take the stems as truma ve'etein es wait ve'etein es hazera. I'll keep the eights. I'll keep the stems because somebody now he goes and asks the shal and somebody says no, you didn't need to take from the stems. Okay, just he says oh, I didn't realize that. So he's holding this whole thing that he's declared as truma. He says okay, so let me knock out the seeds. I'll give the seeds to the coin and I'll keep this part. Too late.
right.
Ela nosen is eight im hazera. He must hand it all over.
Okay.
Okay.
Let's open the door. Let's just get this guy out of here. Okay, come on. Let's go. Here you go. Oh, nice boy. Okay. All right. Trumas Zion Vav. If one of them fell into chulin, it does not render it meduma, and the other one he treats as truma and is liable to chala. So says Rav Meir. But Rabbi Yossi exempts that if the other one fell into another place, it does not render it meduma. If both fell into the same place, it renders meduma in proportion to the smaller of the two. If he sowed one of them, he is exempt, but the other he must treat as truma and he's liable to chala. So says Rav Meir. But Rabbi Yossi exempts. The other person sowed the other, he is exempt. If one sowed both, if it is of a kind whose seed perishes, it is permitted, but if the kind of seed would not perish, it is forbidden. If a woman was eating truma and they came and said to her, "Your husband is dead," or he divorced you, and likewise a slave who was eating truma and they came and said to him, "Your master is dead," or "Your master has sold you to a non-priest," or "He has given you away as a gift," or "He has freed you," and likewise if a priest was eating truma and it became known that he was the son of a divorced woman or a kalutza, Reb Eliezer holds them liable for the payment of the value and the fifth. Rabbi Yeshua exempts, and if he was standing and sacrificing on the altar and it became known that he was the son of a divorced woman or that of a kalutza, Rabbi Eliezer says all the sacrifices which he offered on the altar are invalid, but Rabbi Yeshua declares them valid, and if it became known that he had a blemish, his ministration is invalid. Okay.
Shvius.
Okay. Zion Hay. Young sprouts of the service tree and of the carob tree, the seventh year applies to them and to their proceeds. Beer applies to them and to their proceeds. Lulavim of the terebinth of the pistachio tree and the white thorn, the seventh year applies to them and to their proceeds. Beer does not apply to them or to their proceeds, but beer applies to the hay leaf, and since they fall off from their stem. The rose, cypress, ketaf, lotus, and lotus, the seventh year applies to them and to their proceeds. Reb Shimon says the seventh year does not apply to ketef since it is not a fruit. Now, if a new rose has been preserved in old oil, the rose may be taken. If old and new, it is subject to beer. If new carobs have been preserved in old wine or in old and new, they are subject to beer. And this is the general principle. If it imparts flavor, there are two kinds, and there are two kinds, it is subject to beer, and when of the same kind, whatever the quantity. The seventh year renders forbidden whatever the quantity, and at the same kind, but if of different kinds, it imparts flavor. Okay.
Brachos.
Okay. Zion Hay. Two groups eating in the same house may join together for zimun as long as some see each other. And if not, they conduct their zimun alone, and so do the others. One may not recite the blessing over wine until he has added water thereto, and these are the words of Rebbe Eliezer, but the Chachamim say one may recite the blessing. These are the points between Beit Shammai and Beit Hillel concerning meals. Beit Shammai says one recites the blessing over the day and afterwards the blessing over the wine. Beit Hillel says no, one blesses over the wine and afterwards over the day. Beit Shammai says they wash their hands and afterwards mix the cups of wine, and Beit Hillel say they mix the cup of wine and then wash their hands. Okay. And they can't. It's over here. Okay.
Or halos.
Okay. Halos. Okay. Yud Aleph Ches. A cistern inside a house contains a candelabrum whose lampstand which protrudes upward. An olive pressing basket lies on the lampstand, and in such a way that if the candelabrum were removed, the olive pressing basket would rest on the cistern. Reb Shammai says the cistern remains tahor and the candelabrum remains tameh, whereas Beis Hillel says the candelabrum remains tahor, and they both agree that if removing the candelabrum causes the olive press basket to fall, everything becomes tameh. Utensils that are between the edges of the olive pressing basket and the edges of the cistern remain tahor, even if they are deep within the ground. If there is tumah inside the cistern, the house becomes tameh, and if there is tumah inside the house, utensils that are inside the walls of the cistern remain tahor when they are in an area that is a handbreadth cube. When they are not, they become tameh. If the walls of the cistern extend farther than the house, in either instance, they remain tahor. A board is placed on top of a new oven and extends a handbreadth on all sides. If there is tumah beneath the board, utensils above remain tahor. If there is tumah above the board, utensils beneath it remain tahor. If, however, in the case of an old oven, the oven becomes tameh. The Roch Reb Yochanan ben Nori says it's tahor. If the board is placed on top of two ovens and there is tumah between them, they become tameh, and Reb Yochanan ben Nori says it declares them tahor. Okay. On to
What is it?
Okay. Aleph Tes. Even in a place in which they said it is permitted to rent, they did not say so for a place of dwelling because he brings idols into it, and as it is written, do not bring an abomination into your house. In any place you should not rent him a bathhouse because it is called by its name. One may not stable an animal in the inns of the idolaters because they are subject to regard to bestiality, nor may a woman be alone with them because they are subject to regard to immorality, nor may a person be alone with them because they are subject in regard to murder. A Jewish should not assist an idolatress in childbirth because she causes a child to be born to idolatry. But an idolatrous woman may assist a Jewish in childbirth. A Jew should not nurse the child of an idolatrous woman, but the idolatrous may nurse the child of a Jewish in her domain. One may seek medical treatments literally through healing for his possessions, for healing possessions, but not for personal healing. One may not take haircuts from them in any place, and these are the words of Reb Meir. But they can come and say, in a public place it is permitted, but not in private.
Okay.
Okay.
Hey,
On to
Chagiga.
Zion. Gimel Zion. If one opens a barrel and begins using his dough for festival needs, Rabbi Yehuda says he may finish selling after the funeral, but then his haters can come and say he may not finish. Once the festival was over, they would remove everything to facilitate the cleansing of the temple courtyard. And if the day of the festival was Friday, they would not remove the vessels in deference to the honor of Shabbos. Rabbi Yehuda says not even after the day after the festival was Thursday because the Kohanim were not free. How did they go about removing everything for the cleansing of the temple, a courtyard? They immersed the vessels that were in the temple after they had said to them, "Be careful not to touch the table and the menorah lest you contaminate it." All the vessels that were used in the temple had second and third replacement sets, so that if the first ones became contaminated, they would bring the second ones to replace them. All the vessels that were used in the temple require immersion except for the golden altar and the copper altar, because they are like earth. These are the words of Rabbi Eliezer, but they can come and say because they are plated. Hadranallah.
Hadranallah, Maseches Chagiga, Hadranallah, Seder Moed, and Yevamos.
Go. Aleph, Aleph. Okay. 15 women released their co-wives, and their co-wives were from Chala and Yibam, but from Ad and Penidim. They are the following: a man's daughter, a man's daughter, a daughter's daughter, a son's daughter, his wife's daughter, her son's daughter, and a daughter's daughter. His mother-in-law, his mother-in-law's mother, his father-in-law's mother, his maternal sister, his mother's sister, wife's sister, maternal brother's wife, the wife of his non-contemporaneous brother, and his daughter-in-law. These released their co-wives and their co-wives from Chalitza and from Yuvim Adfed Penidim. If any of these died, refused, or was divorced, or were found to be an alonus, their co-wives are permitted. However, one not can say of his mother-in-law or his mother-in-law's mother or father-in-law or mother, or they were found to be an alonus, or they were refused.
And that's it.
That's the one you can say by heart.